Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And I cannot believe I say this every week, but I can't believe how quickly we move along. We're already this is the second episode of the new year, 2026. And as you will hear me say a lot this year, I am really excited for this year because it will be 5 years this May that I'll be celebrating of this podcast. So I'm very happy about that, very excited, planning some in-person events. I won't give details away yet because details are not solidified yet for something in April that I hope to get to pull off, and it should be a really cool in-person event in Scranton. But online events I'll be doing. In fact, January 28th will be the first one with Emily Hickox of Budget Through Life and Ask the Expert. So you can hop online, ask your questions about credit, debt, budgeting, that sort of thing. But there'll be a lot planned for the year ahead. So please, stay tuned. Be sure to follow Funny Wine Girl Janine on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, listen to the show. I'm really excited and proud and just thrilled of all the fantastic women that I have on each week because they all have something fantastic to offer to inspire, inform, and entertain. And so this week's guest, I always like to talk about, and I think I've gotten away from it just a little bit. I like to say how I know my guest because I do feel it's so important as we are on our devices more and as we are divided more. I feel like we're getting away from what's so important, which is connection and, being with people. And yes, online can be great, but in person is even better. So I think it's great to take those opportunities, try something new, try a drawing class, go out to a function, see a play, go to a card exchange, get to meet people, get to know what they do, share what you do, and you never know how you can help one another and collaborate. So my guest this week is Lisa Regao. Lisa was on the podcast last year. And we did focus heavily on women's health and perimenopause and menopause. But I had heard great things about Lisa from other people. I heard her speak locally here in Scranton. I went to one of her meditation classes, and she's just got a very calming presence, and she's got great knowledge, expertise, and a great background in wellness and mindfulness. And so we're going to talk today and hopefully try to help you maybe reframe what you might be thinking about with the new year because there's a lot of pressure out there. So welcome, Lisa, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Janine. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be back, especially at the start of 2026. I can't believe it's already 2026. Yeah, we're here. It's wonderful.
Yay, we made it, right?
Made it.
We made it. And it's we talk about, and we've talked a little bit offline too. This time of year can be like there can be pressure, right? To make changes because let's face it, there are certain times of year where you're going to like right now, the Valentine cards are out already. Like this is like we kind of push things and like you feel sometimes like if you're not part of it, like what's wrong with me? I should be doing it. But before we start talking about that and how like what your take on that is and how you can we can help some listeners today who might be thinking, oh, I got to try to lose that weight or I've got to try to do this or that. I want you to share a little bit about your background because you're a registered nurse, you're plant predominant nutritionist, you have so much expertise. I want you just to share a little bit about your background so people understand where you're coming from.
Sure. And I'll make it as concise as possible. Really, it's it seems like it's alphabet soup after my name, but the reality is I started out as a nurse, my undergraduate training, and wow, I'm going to date myself here, but it's 35 years in June that I became a nurse. But then I went on to get my master's in sports nutrition and exercise science. And from that, through some experiences here teaching at the University of Scranton with the students, I realized that I needed to broaden my base. I did a lot of work in the behavioral health side, and then got into mindful eating and then mindfulness based stress reduction, where I trained at Brown. And then eventually I got my certificate as a lifestyle medicine professional through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which broadens and ties everything together, what I do. So I'm a plant predominant nutritionist. Also, too, the other pillars of lifestyle medicine are moving naturally or exercise in whatever way that looks like for you. Stress management, and my area of expertise, because I have postgraduate certificates in mindfulness, are in meditation, the aspects of meditation and how that helps your health and well-being. The other aspects as well are sleep. So sleep hygiene is a big one. The reduction of usage of risky substances is another pillar. And then, not that they're in order by any means, but the last one is social connection and relationships, which you pointed out, which honestly, of all the things that we've studied over time, it's probably the most important next to sleep. So we can discuss that, but yeah, that's the broad area of expertise. I enjoy it because human beings are complex,
Mm.
super complex. We're not just one thing. And many different facets of life affect our health and well-being. So it's important that we look at ourselves more globally, understanding that we can't make sweeping changes so broadly, so quickly, because that just is too overwhelming, particularly for our minds, our brains, and for just simply being able to do it. There's only 24 hours in a day. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that, and you know what, that's a great point, because I find, well, and I've spoken here in a lot of my episodes recently with my dad's illness, that's added a little layer of stress. So there are times I'm laying in bed and I'm like, oh, his appointments, and then I worry about my own issues, my own debt, and all these things kind of come up, and I'm like, okay, but you got, or like, what forms need to be filled out, whether it's for financial or medical and all this. And it's like you said, there's 24 hours in a day. You cannot literally tackle everything. And so it does become quite overwhelming. And this time of year, I had invited you to talk this week because I feel like the media, and it's just the norm, like it's how it's become. There are certain topics at certain times of year, and some of them are good, certain months or observances or whatever. But when it comes to New Year's this time of year, it's thought of as a fresh start, and I don't love the term new year new you. It's like, no, it could be new year, same great you, but new opportunity, right? And people tend to get like, either they're excited, which is good, like because they're hopeful, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, or they feel like, well, I better because everybody else is. And either way, it can be overwhelming because, to your point, it's a lot.
Definitely. I mean, I think what's so interesting was I woke up on January 1st this year with a lighter sense. I was like, oh, it's January 1st. I just had that natural sense of myself, and I was getting ready to sit down and meditate and practice. And I chuckled because it could have been any day. It just so happened that that morning I was really aware of it. And yeah, maybe there was a hopefulness within that. I think that, to your point, I'm not a lover of New Year, New You either. My philosophy is a little bit different. And I don't know if it's because of the years in practice working with individuals and then with groups, just listening to, I mean, there's a science of habit change, and there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of experts that are far greater than I regarding habit change. One of them is Dr. Judson Brewer. He's written many books. I've had the great fortune to be in retreats and workshops with him. He's a psychiatrist and neuroscientist, and that's a direction in which it requires some effort to create habit change. Yet we're all capable of doing it. And in my philosophy, and I think that this comes out of the years of like lifestyle medicine and the different things that I've done, is that actually there's a term in mindfulness too that blends it. So I don't mean to be all over the place, but it shows up everywhere, which is small moments many times.
Mm.
Meaning that you can begin again over and over again. And that's language that I use if I'm teaching mindfulness, but it also shows up if we're beginning to make any type of change. Is that it's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. So small moments many times, these very consistent behaviors over time is actually how we begin to change into the future. How do we change the behavior? Now, there's some obviously that are more beneficial than others. I was reading an article which I think is so interesting, and the word resolution comes from a Latin word that meaning to let go of,
Hmm.
put down or let go of. And I was like, wow, that was really interesting, because it's not necessarily to begin something. It's, in my estimation, to let go of a past behavior that may not serve you any longer.
Hmm.
So I find that to be very helpful when we're moving into January, when you see ads constantly, New Year, New You, or gym memberships. And it's great for marketing and to capture people's enthusiasm to make a change. It's how do you sustain it and how do you support yourself when, just like all human beings, we stop doing some behavior, a healthful behavior in one way or the other.
Yeah. And what was that? Small moments many times?
Small moments many times.
I love that. And I love the idea of starting again because that's something I think and the research says, and I forget what it is, that the most New Year's resolutions, if they are made, are not carried or like stopped by February, or it might even be even the end of January by now. I know that was an old study I had read or whatever. And so then people feel like, well, some people might feel, oh, well, that's it. I tried. And I think we had spoken about this because there's that idea too, where it's like, oh, I blew my diet. Okay, well, I'll start on Monday or whatever. And it's like, you don't have to wait for this designated time. Like, okay, you didn't do something that you wanted to do because it would have been a healthy change. Okay, so start over right now or tomorrow, not 3 days from now. And it's interesting. I had that kind of text conversation with a friend because I didn't make resolutions per se, but with the stress and things with my parents, I tend to get upset in front of them. Like I'm a person who I don't stay upset long, but like my barometer goes up or I'm like, oh my, and I don't, and it's when I'm upset on their behalf or something like that. And I don't want to upset them. And I said, I got to do better with that. Like be a calmer. And I didn't do so well this morning. We had Roto-Rooter here yesterday and the bill is incredibly high. And I wasn't mad at my parents or whatever, my mother. I was upset with myself. I felt like maybe they're gouging the price. And my reaction was like, I can't believe they, and I got all worked up. And then I got my mom a little bit upset. And she's like, no, I'm not upset, but I don't want you to be upset. And not to get into my garbage here, but like I thought, well, I said I was going to do better, but I will start again. But it's hard though, because then I say to myself, you're very aware of this. Why do you keep doing this? But I thought of you because I'm like, I need tools and I need to use them all the time, or at least do my best to be consistent.
You know, you're pointing to something though that's just plain old reality that we're all going through, every single one of us. And I think to highlight something and to make clear, my suggestion isn't about not having goals, or it's about recognizing what's most healthful and skillful. And so in your case, as you're describing it, which I think is really important, it's like, yes, I'm aware that when this happens, if I lose my temper or I throw my hands up and say, oh, screw it, which happens for many of us because we're human beings, emotions are normal. They're allowed. It's that when it's no longer benefiting ourselves or it's causing harm to ourselves or another, we can learn from that. That's when we can start to make change. It's in the awareness of recognizing that that's even happening. Habit pattern is something that we learn from, whether it's helpful or not, or skillful or not. So getting angry and losing our temper happens. Is there a potential to gain a set of skills to then say, oh, okay, here it is. I'm recognizing it. How do I now meet myself and the experience that's happening in a way that's more beneficial? Mm. That requires some effort. This isn't just like, oh yeah, this thing's just going to naturally happen. We say it, and so therefore it's going to happen. That in and of itself is really what I would say pretty delusional, because we just write it down. Oh, here's my resolution. However, goals and healthy behavior are important. And so it requires the awareness that this is important. This is what I would like to do. And having a broad enough ability to recognize that when I do stop, going to bed at 11 o'clock at night and I stay up till 1 a.m. binging Netflix, which is going to happen, that at that point, I'm aware that that's happening. I wake up the next morning, I'm groggy, I have 4 cups of coffee, and now I'm jittered out and I'm snapping at people. That we gain the understanding that, wow, that was not help. I'm a mess. Like I'm not feeling well. How can I sustain the ability to start again and say, yeah, you know what? That was a one-off for this week. Okay, back to my routine of going to bed at 11 and getting up at 6 or 7, whatever. It's these small moments and the beginning again. Sharon Salzberg, a famous, still wonderful mindfulness teacher and author, it is her term. She utilizes begin again in practice, in a formal meditation practice. But that's true of anyone at any time. We can just start over. It doesn't have to be January. It could be, April 10th. Like, and this is why I think it's really important to say, here are the set of goals that I think might be beneficial for me. And everybody's different. Some of us too are really, this is what we like to do. We want to exercise, we want to eat right, we want to do all of these things because we recognize it makes us feel good. But then there's always a blind spot. There's always something that's going on for every human being. Generally, it's the way in which we soothe ourselves. Mm. And that's the area that if we turn toward it with kindness and with some courage, we can say, oh, you know what, this area might benefit me looking at and maybe making some changes. It just so happens that weight, particularly at this time of year, because of holidays and how we eat, becomes like a focal point on the marketing side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we're talking now, I'm thinking I've had the pleasure of talking to you offline about things, and it came to my awareness as you were just talking there, it reminded me of what you had said to me, something I was sharing with you. And it was like the approach of taking it, like meet it with kindness. You just said that as I was describing something to you in another conversation, it was like, what's wrong with me? I was taking that, looking through the lens of like, how do I fix myself? What's wrong? And meeting it with kindness. I like that approach. And I think we need to be reminded of that, because a lot of times we are looking at ourselves in a way that's not so kind, and thinking then too, well, once I lose that weight, then I'm a better person, or I'm this or that, or I'm like as good as so-and-so. And that causes a whole different set, I think, of problems, right?
Yeah, because comparative thinking is what really does increase many people's anxiety or depression, the symptomatic side of it. And I'm not suggesting necessarily as a diagnosis, just what it feels like to feel down or depressed. So I'll use that language broadly, or feel really unmoored, uncomfortable, anxious, stressed out, whatever language fits for you. And it comes down to comparative thinking, which is judgmental thinking. We all have that. Judgment in and of itself isn't bad. It's what helps guide us. It's just that oftentimes our minds just completely run out of control. And so we look at a commercial of a thin person, or we see a friend, or, we can't know what's going on with people too. We just make assumptions, which is the unfortunate part of our minds, which is natural again. It's just that it happens. You can't know if somebody's sick. You can't know if they're taking a GLP-1 like Ozempic. You can't know if maybe there's something else going on. They're so stressed out that they're not eating. So there's a lot of things that happen, but we automatically assume that they're in a much better place or space. The only time that we actually have is right now to take care of ourselves. And in doing so, we show up to life in a way that's healthier, both in mind and body and heart and spirit. It's just how it happens. As we've talked, my dad has been ill now with a neurodegenerative disease for 13 years. And now caring for my parents in the same way, it does create more stress. Everybody's going through something though. And again, we're not comparing pain. It just so happens that it's happening to each one of us. So we can understand discomfort, pain, sadness with each other, and actually bring a sense of genuine kindness. And kindness actually requires strength and courage. To be nice is easy. Hi, how you doing? You pass somebody. You don't even pause to hear the how you doing, what the answer is. To be kind requires your presence and your patience, because you have to sit with even sometimes the most difficult things that are happening, like with your parents, for example, and to sit with the discomfort that you're feeling. Roto-Rooter shows up in the middle of the winter here in Northeast PA is a nightmare. And then on top of it, there's a financial burden to that. That's going to create stressors no matter how you cut it. It's how do we meet ourselves? How do we take care of ourselves? Or are we soothing ourselves by, after you write the check for the Roto-Rooter, heading into the Christmas cookies or grabbing a glass of wine? We all soothe ourselves, though. If anybody tells you that they don't, they are lying. Everybody has a place in which they soothe. It only becomes an issue when it becomes unhealthy or unskillful.
Yes. Yeah. And we did talk about that. And I wanted to say two things, and I don't want to get us off topic. I just thought it was interesting. You mentioned the GLPs. I saw an ad and we talked about the ads this time of year, Weight Watchers. And there's a mention of GLPs. And I literally said out loud, I'm like, they're getting into the business of GLPs. I just found that very interesting because it used to be about counting points. And now I'm like, oh, now they're arranging for you to get, I don't know. That could be a whole different topic, but I found that interesting and I don't fully get all that, but I don't know. I want to give you a chance to respond, but I don't want to get us off topic. Is that seem the direction we'd be going? Like, I was just surprised by that when I saw that ad. I'm like, huh, because they're not doctors. It's a weight management program.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And as a nurse, GLP-1s have their place, just like all medication has its place as long as, for you personally that you're being followed by a doctor. The difference is there's two things happening at once. Weight Watchers was a behavioral change and weight management program, right? And so I'm going to be cautious about, I don't want to get in trouble, but I mean, this is what they do. Adding that in requires now physician's care, the physician's care to write. And so there is in the background medical care that's happening that's attached to it. I think that GLP-1s have changed the landscape. So particularly around obesity and then the actual disease processes that come out of obesity. However, it doesn't address in any real way behavior and habit change. It doesn't. So I think it's important. I just think it needs to go hand in hand with trained people that will aid you in recognizing these are the behaviors, whether that's a therapist, a counselor, someone like myself, because that's the type of work that I do. So it's important than just to take an injection and then just go about your day. There's so much more to us. Like I said, we're complex beings. And I think that that's something to be aware of. Now, they're very beneficial in many ways. Many ways it'll decrease diabetes, the aid potentially with habit change. Actually, there's some neuroscience studies going on right now, potentially. So we don't know the outcome. They're pretty new too. There are some downsides to it as well. So it's a whole nother topic. But yeah, combining the two, I think, is a little confusing for the general public, which I think maybe you're pointing to. I think that more needs to be said around that, because no matter what, if you look at some of the studies, the longer studies on health and what it looks like, particularly if you look at the blue zones. So lifestyle medicine and the blue zones they cross over tremendously. And when you look at it, if you're not familiar with the blue zones, I just quickly share that for those out there listening. The blue zones are regions in the world where they found that there are the population of people who are living longer than the average lifespan with health, fully healthy. Obviously with some age-related stuff, but living long with longevity and health. It started in Sardinia. And so they started tracking people in Sardinia. Now there are 5 blue zones that we've found on the planet. Just so happens that Sardinia was the first. And what we're finding is they have a higher population of centenarians, people living into their 90s, and most centenarians are hundreds. So that's pretty impressive. One of the keys around that is basically what I was saying before, which is small moments many times. They do this naturally. So there is a component of exercise, but they don't call it that. It's called natural movement. What they mean by that is they walk most of the time because where they live, they have the capacity to do that. So I recognize in saying that where we live, there aren't sidewalks everywhere. There are semis flying past us half the time. It becomes more difficult to a degree but it doesn't mean we can't do it. We live where there's mountains and trails all over the place now. You go down to the trail by Olive Street, you could walk miles, you can make your way to Taylor. So it's possible. It just looks different. It looks like where we live.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great point. I think I saw, if not a documentary, a news story, and it might have been Sardinia, or I thought it was someplace in Italy, but it was they were walking everywhere, they were eating well, and it was, yeah, and those blue zones, that's amazing. And I didn't mean to get us off topic with the GLP, but again, I found it interesting. I think to your point, you're saying like, it could be confusing for some consumers watching it. I was like, oh wow, they're into that business. Like it surprised me because I thought, okay, I know that they're about counting the points and I knew a lot of people who did Weight Watchers and did well with it. So I thought, well, this is an interesting add-on now for the year. But the other thing I wanted to bring up is something that I think you had actually said to me when we were talking in person that I love, the whole idea too of responding to things instead of reacting to things. And I think of that because of, my particular, taking it back to me, my issue of like my temper or whatever. And I like that. I try to remind myself of that when I am reacting, because that's the emotion. And that's where I get myself into what I'll say into trouble.
Well, yeah, responding versus reacting is really one of the key shifts when we're talking about stress management through mindfulness. And mindfulness really just means paying attention on purpose. Like we're purposefully, intentionally paying attention, and that at the end of that definition is non-judgmentally. So the whole definition is the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And what it's doing is it's shifting us from being reactive, this just habit pattern reactivity, to taking a pause, even if it's a single breath, and responding in a way that's skillful, that's healthy, that makes sense in the moment. And that's wisdom. You start to realize, oh, okay, this is wise. This doesn't benefit me just exploding right now because it'll upset my mom. What can I do? Can I just pause for a second? Can I step away? Can I say, there's a bunch of hacks. Oren J. Sofer is a very well-known mindfulness teacher, also an author who's written several books. And one of the things he describes is, just do something like say, oh, excuse me, I have to go to the bathroom. Like literally walking away. Walking away is not, again, being a coward. It's taking pause. It's like giving yourself a timeout, taking a breath, and then coming back to address the situation. Same theory goes in sports, in exercise science when we're working with athletes. There's something called the stretch and grow theory, which was you're working out. You're doing all of these things to actually benefit the body, be an excellent athlete, and perform. But that only goes so far, and then you will eventually start to move into overuse. Hurt your joints, hurt your muscles. The stretch and grow theory says that after a designated period of time, you pause. You take some time off, maybe 2 or 3 days. When you go back, what they find is that you have far greater growth. You can perform better. Your body has recovered to a degree, so actually you have more output. So power, output, or whatever the skill set that you were doing. It's the same thing with our minds and our bodies. Same thing when it comes to stressors, starting something new, learning something new. We start out small and then we build upon it. And it's the same thing if we're going to make change, healthful change. We have to do it basically baby step. I mean, you wouldn't sit down to a piano the first time and start a concerto, just sit there and play a concerto. I say this particularly when I'm teaching mindfulness too, is you have to learn the language. You have to learn the scales. If it's the piano metaphor, you have to start small and build on it. Over time, you start to realize, oh, wow, I'm less reactive. I now can settle in with that felt uncomfortable. My chest got tight, my jaw got tight, and I noticed my hands were clenched. Okay, if you're fully aware of that awareness that arises from paying attention, then you can say, oh, hang on just a second. Take a few deep breaths. Nobody knows you're doing it. And then begin again.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're not going to get mad, though. I
Yeah.
always tell people that it's like it's still going to happen. It's just how do you meet yourself? Can you meet yourself with kindness and be like, oh yeah, happened again. All right, let's start again. I'm right here, right now. Same thing with eating well. The same thing with particularly making community, connecting in relationships like you described. For a lot of us, we don't want to walk into a party where we don't know anyone. Feels really uncomfortable. But can you do something like you described? Go to a class where everybody's new to learn something. So you're not alone. Okay, let me start this, let me, learn how to crochet in a class or learn how to sew or go to a card exchange. Do something that starts to build on this possibility. We know that the longest longitudinal human study in happiness came out of Harvard. And I think it got published in 2023, but don't quote me on that. And the current director of the program is still going on. John F. Kennedy actually was one of the participants at Harvard. So the study has been running a long time. It's on happiness. But what they found is that connection, warm, connected relationships, and it doesn't have to be family. This is just any healthy relationship, tremendously increases longevity and health by about 50%. If you don't have these connections and support, it's like smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Mm. So you can see what a huge difference it is between being connected and not. What the determination is, 2 or more relationships or less than that. So 1 or less. And pets count. So it's important to recognize that, I truly believe, and I wouldn't be in the business that I'm in, that we have a tremendous influence over our own health and well-being just by making some of these basic changes, particularly like the blue zones or lifestyle medicine pillars, which is what I teach.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's great. And while you were talking there, I was thinking too of something I just saw the other day, which I loved, which was baby steps are still steps. As long as you're making, moving forward or you're doing these things, that's still progress. That's still movement. And that's important. And I think, I love all these ideas that you're giving people just to help them reframe things. And to go back to my, the thinking of how in that moment when I did kind of explode, I went to Planet Fitness after because I wanted to at least walk on the treadmill because I knew that would help me calm down. But I did reflect and think, how could I do it differently? And I'm like, I do need tools. I do need to, really be mindful about this. But I did think to myself, well, what could I have done differently? I kind of exploded as I looked at the bill and I'm like, they didn't itemize. This isn't right. And I thought to myself, I could have just said, hey, Mom, can I see that bill? And thought the things in my head without exploding. So I was trying to think of how I could do it differently. But I mean, again, every time is another possibility for me to begin again.
You know what, though? You just said something that's so important and powerful, which is you you went to Planet Fitness and started to walk so that you could de-stress. There's a Thich Nhat Hanh is, I'm sure you probably know who Thich Nhat Hanh is, but if those who don't, he's a famous Vietnamese monk, Buddhist monk, who started Plum Village when he fled Vietnam. So he's since dead. But he would say, just take your anger for a walk. And what he was pointing to was, it's going to be here. Anger is going to show up, or difficult emotions are going to show up. How do we take care of ourselves? How do we meet ourselves when they do arise? And although you were playing catch up, which is after the explosion, you went for a walk. You actually were bringing down inflammation in your mind and in your body. Trying to decrease inflammation really is the goal, because any chronic disease, one of its key factors is inflammation. So when you stress out or you flip out or you yell, inflammation happens. It's just part of our stress hormones that naturally occur. In order for them to start to abate or subside over time, certain practices are more beneficial. That's where living the way of mindfulness or awareness or whatever language you'd like to use, that's why those practices are so important. After you sit formally in a meditation, we're not just, flipping a switch and stopping behaving this way. No, we're living it into our off the cushion or off the chair or whatever we're doing, or and shifting it into our everyday lives, carrying it into our everyday lives with some sense of groundedness. But like I said, strong emotions are going to happen because we're human beings. We're not trying to make ourselves not be human or be natural. We're simply saying this too can occur. This too will happen. And how do I respond in a way that's going to benefit myself and those around me? And that could be even in a community setting, how you behave at work, how you relate to people at work, family, friends, just in the grocery store, for example. And it
Yeah.
does reframe your perspective, because then you start to realize, am I looking through a set of lenses that's angry or aversive, or am I looking through a set of lenses that's just like wanting everything to be rosy, or am I starting to see things for what they are and then living fully right in the moment? But it requires skill. It's learning your play the scales basically of piano.
Yes. Yeah. It is really important. Before we shift, because I do want to talk about, before we wrap up, an event that's coming up here in Scranton that you're going to be involved in. But before we transition to that, was there any other point? Because I know I kind of pulled in some things we didn't really plan on talking about that you just wanted to share, for folks who might be in that mindset of, oh no, I've got to, make change, or anything on that topic, or that you think you wanted to share.
Yeah, I think creating something that's simple. And so through the lens of lifestyle medicine, particularly in some of the things that I would recommend are, if you want to make a shift and you're talking about nutrition, let's say, fiber is key. So if you just add more fiber, and what I mean by that is have an extra apple, eat extra vegetables, find a way to add more beans to a couple meals in a day. Pick something small that you can begin to do, and baby steps are steps. If I got $1 for every time I said baby steps, I think I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere. But it's truly that. It's like, but fiber in and of itself, and I mean whole fiber. I don't mean like Metamucil and things like that, although they're helpful. But you want to be chewing your food, enjoying your food, recognizing taste and experience around food, so that you can get some benefit. But fiber is an anti-inflammatory way of taking care of the body. So that's one of the things. Move naturally. Exercise does not have to look like jumping on a treadmill. It could be walking the dog every day and being outside in nature, which nature actually is so beneficial for mood boosting as well as movement. So both go hand in hand. So to me, again, that's really important. Consistent restorative sleep is huge. If we don't sleep well, we're not great when we're communicating. We can be short with others. We start to eat more because our body's trying to keep itself awake. That's a natural process. So if you don't sleep enough, your body will look for calories to get you to stay awake. And so that's just something small. It's like restorative sleep is important. And that would be consistent sleep. For many of us at a later age, we do get up to go to the bathroom, but the hope is that you can go back and fall back to sleep. So have restorative sleep. Stress management in any way you find supportive for yourself. I obviously talk about mindfulness meditation because it's what I'm trained in and what I teach, but prayer is beneficial, positive psychology in any way that you find it, laughter that you do. These are important. And then finally, connection. Connecting as best as you can to others in any way. And again, consistent small moments many times add up. We talk about it like stringing the pearls on a pearl necklace. The more that you do it, the more you eventually recognize the beauty of what the outcome is.
I love that. I love that visual too. I think that's so nice. Yeah. I think that's great. And now is a great time for, the connection part, because I'm seeing all kinds of things out there, events that people like, classes, because I want to take a drawing class. The library's offering. All the libraries are great. I mean, so it's a great time to try something new, and it gives you an opportunity to meet people too. So I think that's great. Yeah. Well, let's transition into this event that's coming up, which I'm excited about. It's January 18th, which is a Sunday here in the Scranton area, Clark Summit. And this is going to be particularly for women who are interested in learning, I guess, menopause toolkit. Is that kind of the name of it? Tell us a little bit about that. I know you do need to register. And all the information, I will share the link in the show notes, but anyone, if you're here in Northeast PA, you who are interested in learning more, and believe me, a lot of women I talk to when I'm complaining about my different symptoms, they're like, oh, me too. So tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so we're going to be running something called the Menopause Toolkit. It's a retreat setting or setup, basically. It's 5 hours starting from 11:30 until 4:30 on January 18th. Myself, Ann Feeney, and Amy Lieber are going to be teaching. And also, it's not only going to be cognitive didactic teaching, we're actually going to be adding in some body practices and experiential practices like meditation, movement, mindful movement, and so forth, breathing exercises. There will be resources and lunch available. So, resources at the end, we'll be giving all the participants. There'll be lunch in the middle of the day. We'll be doing some discussion around what are the symptoms, what are the potential treatments, and then, as I said, we do have our own ability to affect our own health. We do have the capacity to do that. So within that portion of it, we're going to talk about perimenopause, symptoms of perimenopause, try to dispel as many myths as we can around perimenopause and menopause broadly. So we can't diagnose or give information because Anne and Amy are both in healthcare, women's health, but we can talk about it broadly, answer your questions. I'll be doing some lunch and learn. So I'll be doing a little bit of mindful eating during lunch, and then talking about plant-based nutrition around that and how to benefit our bodies during this period of life, because it's yet another portion of life that we can meet with support, care, and kindness, or we can just be pissed off at our bodies for betraying ourselves. So, I mean, those are two extremes. Can we actually find a way to move forward as healthfully as possible?
Yeah. Well, I'm not pissed off at my body. I'm pissed off at me. Usually my mind because of my choices. Because it's so funny. This woman, Sandy Graham, who has the vintage kitchen, she does cooking classes and all that. She laughed at me the one day when I said I was too lazy to make scrambled eggs for breakfast. And she's like, Janine, eggs? And I'm like, yeah, because you got to get the pan out, you got to like whip them up and all that. And she cracks. Whenever I see her now, I can't help but say, hey, I'm still, because I'll do that. But like for me, my point is about the healthy eating. I need things like super duper easy. And I'll freely admit I tend to gravitate toward the bad stuff, like the muffin or those kinds of things. But I also need to make the healthy choice. I need it super duper easy. So that is something I do need to work on, but it's got to be easy because I'll admit I'm lazy. I'm instantly like, that takes too much effort.
All right, so let me ask you something. So the very first meal I ever made when I switched to become plant predominant so tell me if this is going to be too difficult for you or not. But I took a can of black beans and opened them with a can opener. I made instant brown rice in the microwave. I pulled salsa out of the fridge and I had baby spinach that was fresh. I put the baby spinach and the beans in a bowl and stuck it in the microwave for 1 minute. And then I added the warm rice and I poured salsa over it. That was my dinner. Is that like too complicated for you? Is that
No, it's not. I think maybe I'm lazier in the morning because it depends. Like it's tough because I'm like, oh, I don't want to get the pan out. So I will make eggs sometimes, and I know you're plant based, so I'm doing the real eggs. But no, that actually sounds like something I could do and something I could eat because spinach I don't mind. But I will admit, and this is, again, I'm going to judge myself, but it's the truth. I won't let a cookie go to waste in this house, but I can't tell you how many wilted spinach leaves I've thrown away through the years or rotting like avocado or whatever because I do get lazy, and it's not just lazy. I'm going to take myself back. As we mentioned before, it's a practice, right? So if my attitude is I'm going to choose the muffin over the whatever until I stop that and like get into a better habit of making the right choices, it's going to continue this way. But no, that sounds like something that I could eat and I could do. Yeah, no, that sounds fair.
well, and I asked that because you're kind of outing yourself in that. there's a difference here. There's two different things going on. One of them is you're preferring, you're preferring the cookie. And so is it is it beneficial? Is it helping you? And that's always a question that, and what are you willing to do to make a change? Those are the questions that I ask when I'm working with somebody one-on-one. Because once you start to, you're aware of it. You just described it. Once you're aware of something, awareness leads to choice, and choice leads to healing, health, and freedom. So you can start to say, oh, okay, I'm aware of this thing now. Now I have a bunch of choices. What am I going to choose? And what's the outcome? What's the healing, the health, the freedom that comes from that? We have to be willing to make a modicum of effort. I generally tell people to be healthy, there is some effort that has to be put forth. There's commitment to that. And when the commitment wanes, we begin again.
Yeah. And that's, you know what, that's truly, again, I will own, I'm outing myself the effort, because I will often freely say to people, like with my weight gain and the belly and all that, yeah, some part of it is perimenopause, but I'm like, I'm never sitting here going, geez, I try and try and try, but it's like, no, I don't. So I'm very aware of that, which in a way, there's a little hope in that and freedom for me, because I go, imagine what will happen when I do actually try. Because right now I'm not, it's like I don't eat, or drink half a bottle of wine and have like 2 donuts in a day and go, I wonder what's happening. Why am I? I'm very aware. I'm very aware.
And
Yeah.
then in that becomes a saying, okay, what does it feel like after I do it? After I have the half bottle of wine and 2 donuts, what do I feel like after? It's the awareness of that too. It's like, this is what's happening. I'm aware that this happened. What does it feel like afterwards? What am I willing to do to make a shift?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does it look like? And everybody's different. When I'm working with somebody or in suggestion of, I don't have the answers necessarily when it comes to your behavior change. I can guide you. And then you begin to find what's most beneficial for you. And then that's the direction. Because if you're looking externally for people to give you the answers, it's like the old days when you'd go to a registered dietitian and they'd hand you an 1,800 calorie diet and hand it to you and tell you, hey, come back in 2 weeks and we'll chat about what you did. That's not really going to help you much, because it's not addressing what we call the root cause of what's going on. That's where lifestyle medicine comes in. It's you as a human being in your wholeness, in your fullness, and what's your life look like. And you've freely described, you're taking care of 2 aging, failing health parents. That's huge. And if we blow that off and we sort of tuck it in the background and pretend like that doesn't create a lot of upheaval in your life, right then and there, that becomes delusional. That becomes a space in which then everything that comes out of it isn't truly reality. We have to actually turn toward the thing that's really difficult at times, just lightly. We don't have to like just wallow in it, but we have to recognize that causes a great deal of stress in my life. How then do I manage for myself so that I am at my best to care for them, do for them, and for myself? Boundaries are a huge piece of that. And that in and of itself is where this effort, I'm using the word effort on purpose, because it's kind of a range. It doesn't have to be 100%, and it also isn't zero. That's living in the extremes that creates so much chaos for people. How do you get in the middle a little bit and say, okay, what does this look like today? May not look like this tomorrow, but what's it going to look like today?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And that is the truth. Like today, getting on the treadmill for 50 minutes, like that was a good choice. And I did it. But there are days and other days. And I love being outside. Again, you mentioned nature and movement. I was out doing errands a few days ago and I stopped at Lake Scranton and I'm like, well, I was coming down 307. I said, it's going to be messy, but I'd love to see it. The snow and the trees, it'll be beautiful. So I just trudged through the snow for a 20-minute walk. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was still 20 minutes. And in fact, I talked about this last week on my podcast. My friend Oliver, he teases me. He's not a nature guy. I said, I literally touched the bark of a tree and I said, it made me feel calmer. And right now I'm in the middle of an online course of forest therapy certification. I've only gotten like through a third of the way through, but like I know there's science behind that. And I don't want us to like totally get derailed, but just touching it's real. I'm not, not kidding. I felt better just feeling the bark. So, but my point is there are days that I'll choose the couch instead and say, "Nah, I didn't get out because it's too cold." And "Nah, I didn't feel like putting my shoes on and getting in the car to drive that 1.5 miles to Planet Fitness." But so every day does look different, and I love that reminder of what it can look like day to day. Meet yourself where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to hear more about the forest therapy because it's so cool. And there is a ton of research, and also lifestyle medicine incorporates a bunch of it. But just in the fact that our direct experience of being present, you don't need to take my word for it when we talk about being aware, being mindful of things. It's your direct experience. So it's your own senses that are actually giving you the feedback. And so in that moment, by touching the bark, you may not be like, all right, I have no idea why this is happening. Okay, it doesn't really matter the why necessarily. It's just that when you did it, you sensed it under your fingertips and you sense something for yourself. That's all that is necessary in understanding how we benefit ourselves. It supported you in that moment. Do we have to like really decipher it and pull it apart and analyze it? Yes, I understand in medicine and in science, which I am a scientist, I am medicine. Yes, that's important. However, things have been happening way before we were ever doing studies. The Buddha existed 2,600 years ago. Some of the things they're describing then we're still practicing today, most of the things. So it's just telling you, like, just by touching the bark of the tree, something supported you. Something made you feel different or better. I don't want to put words in your mouth. That's the point. It's like, okay, getting outside in nature, just getting some sunlight, even when it's cloudy here in Northeast PA, is beneficial. You are going to get vitamin D. You will get it on your face. If you don't have sunglasses on, right through your eyes. It's the fastest, easiest way to get vitamin D to actively support conversion in your body. Taking supplements, very important, particularly where we live, but the best way is sunlight. I mean, it is the major way that we get our vitamin D. If your vitamin D level is too low, it causes fatigue, it causes body aches, it causes depression, it causes all sorts of things, increases inflammation in the body. Like there's a million things that can, not a million, should be more concise in my speech, but many things happen if your vitamin D level is low. And so in this case, stepping outside to your point, and going to Lake Scranton had many more benefits than just, hey, I'm going to walk and get my heart rate up. Way more benefits by calming you by touching the bark and getting some sunlight. And you don't need to like tick that off. You can just be like, all right, this is healthy. This helps me. This makes me feel good, or whatever language benefits you.
Yeah. And that is one thing my friends know about me. Like nature, I always say nature heals me because that is something I'm very aware of it. I don't take the opportunity every day, and especially as it's colder, but I know the benefit and I know it's going to make me feel great. And just like literally just touching it, it instantly calmed me. Just seeing, oh my God, I'm taking pictures. I'm stopping because I love the way the snow looked and the lake, and it was just beautiful. It always makes me feel good. That's why I love kayaking in the summer, all of that. Just it's my thing, and it wasn't always my thing. But as I've gotten older, that's the great part about aging. You can change and you can like different things and decide you like different things and how good they are for you, and that's the great part of it. We get to change and we get to learn more about ourselves as we age.
Connecting to nature, honestly, you're right. I mean, as we age, we start to recognize what is really, that's where wisdom comes from. That's where there, with age brings wisdom, as we say. But being in nature, particularly connecting once again to nature, does have a lot of scientific support around the settling of the nervous system. And that in and of itself is an anti-inflammatory stress reduction way of being. If you step outside, even if it's just for a moment and catch a couple breaths, I know the other day it was 16 degrees outside and 1 with the wind chill factor. So I'm like, I don't want to go outside, but I happen to just open my door and just stand there for a minute just to actually, and just by looking outside, being by a window, if you can't get outside, the fact of just doing that actually aids people to reduce their stress and lower their stress hormones. It starts to reduce those symptoms that activate the nervous system, and it actually settles you down.
Yeah. I am sold on that all the time. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think I might have took us off track a little bit. So before we close, is there anything else you wanted to share about that workshop? Like I said, I will share the link so you can like sign up and you can read more about it, obviously, on the website, on Jaya's website. It's in, as I mentioned, Clark Summit. But is there anything else that you wanted to make sure that you shared about that workshop?
Yeah, I think if you're just curious, if you have questions, you don't need to have ever practiced yoga or mindfulness or anything. The whole time, it won't be that. So, the 5 hours that we're together, we're going to be educating at the same time. We're going to chat during lunch. And so, if you're curious, I just want you to know that anybody can come. Uh, it's geared to women. So, it's a women's program. So, it's for women specifically. So, women only. And come with your questions, come curious, come open. And we'll be teaching you some different breathing exercises. So you were talking about some tools and skills. So we'll do some breathing exercises. We'll be doing some movement practices that you can take home with you. So it's an offering that's a little bit different because it's not just a lecture. You're going to be actively participating as well with whatever you choose to. You don't have to. You can sit and just be a part of it. You don't, but at least you'll be able to be around some other positive ways to benefit you if you're struggling with any of the symptoms. Night sweats and, hot flashes and sleep disturbance and any of the other major issues that arise around perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of other things to ask you about, but I don't want to take us off more because I'm seeing a lot about chair yoga for women my age. I went down a rabbit hole last week of Tai Chi walking and I'm like, oh, what's this? But then of course it's this Asian guy being interviewed and he has no shirt on. It's like how cut he is and everything. I'm like, oh, Tai Chi walking. So all these things, if you spend too much time on social media, it will all be sold to you, especially if you start looking at menopause, perimenopause, you'll see everything.
We'll do our best to dispel as much as possible. And the three of us are all in healthcare. So we're going to stick with science-based modalities as well as the Eastern science of mindfulness and movement, mindful movement and yoga as well. We're practicing yoga in a very different way. So just so you know, come comfortable. You do not have to do anything, like I said. So you're not, this is what is supportive for you. So you're always in choice while you're there. It's not a yoga class. It's not a meditation class. We're just going to be doing some of the different modalities to let you have an offering that might benefit you if you're having high stress and mood issues with your menopause or perimenopause. If you're noticing different issues with the body, pain fluctuates during perimenopause and menopause. So we'll be talking about what kind of mindful movement you might want to choose to do. So it's just going to be a day for women to rest, to relax, to hear what might be supportive, and hopefully answer some questions if possible, or point you in the right direction that might be a resource for you.
Yeah. And I think you might have said this before, but to make the point, not every answer is the same for everybody, right? Not every woman in perimenopause or menopause is the same. So the solution could look different for each person, or and many of us do have some similar symptoms, but there's not a one size fits all, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and so that day we're not going to be able to address people specifically. We're going to talk about it more broadly and give you some opportunities to, as I mentioned before, we have the capacity to empower our own health. And so maybe trying a few things with also the benefit of talking to your OBGYN if it's hormone therapy, for example, if that's right for you. So it's a combination of things. It won't just be one specific thing, and it's not one size fits all for sure, because genetics comes into play, age, where you are in this particular point in life, in this developmental point of life. So yeah.
Yeah. Great point. Well, I want to thank you so much. Honestly, I could talk with you, I should say, for hours. So we'll cut it here, but thank you for all of this because I know that this will be valuable for the listeners. I know it's always valuable to me when I speak with you. I love your philosophies, your take on things, and your presence. As I always say, you're just a calming person. You're like a tree. I'm going to touch your bark.
I'm going to take that as a massive compliment. Actually, too, you know what's really funny? I have my Tree of Life pendant on today, which is so funny. Um, I take that as a huge compliment so much, Janine. Thank you. And thanks for having me. I really appreciate and enjoy being able to have a conversation and just impart maybe just a little bit of my expertise to the community.
Excellent. Yeah, and it was meant to be a compliment, by the way.
Love it.
So next time I see you, try not to be taken aback if I just reach out and touch you. It's for calming purposes.
Not a problem.
Thank you again so much, Lisa. And for my listeners, check out the show notes. I will have the link. It's Jaya Yoga Studio in Clark Summit. That is, let's say 10 to 15 minutes outside of Scranton. So it's Northeast PA. If you're in the region, you can sign up there, register for it. Keep an eye out. Funny Wine Girl Janine, I will be posting about all kinds of upcoming events. January 28th, like I said, that's going to be an Ask the Expert. And my goal is to try to do that every quarter, maybe every month if I can swing it, a different topic each time. And this one's going to be about budgeting and finance. And Emily Hickox is really great at that. So just keep an eye out for those things. If you're interested in helping to support this podcast, reach out to me. I have a variety of affordable sponsorship packages. And if you're interested in being a guest on this show, or you know someone, you're like, oh, wow, this woman has been volunteering for 40 years, or this woman, just opened up a business and she's successful. Whatever it is, if you have a person in mind, a woman who's got something to share, an interesting story that she can share her wisdom, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Absolutely. And as I say each week, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.